everyone. Today I'm sharing a really super interesting interview I had with Kirsten Maxwell from Kids Are a Trip. Kirsten's been a travel blogger for quite some time, and one of the revenue streams that she has is selling guides on her site. So this week we're going to hear from her about how she did it, plus some really neat tips and tricks. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Please consider subscribing to this channel for more interviews about the business of blogging. Let's jump into the interview. Kirsten, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about products. I'm really excited to have you here. Where are you now?
I'm happy to be here. I am in Dallas. I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we are enjoying a lovely spring day. So I'm excited and enjoying all of it before the warm weather comes this summer.
Yeah, I don't think I knew that you lived in Dallas. So you're not too far from me now that I'm in Denver.
No, I actually have to drive to Denver next month. My son's going to work at a dude ranch this summer. So
No way. Okay, well, if you're near Denver, you come here.
Yep,
I'll take you
I
out for
will say
cocktails or
hello.
coffee or whatever you want.
Definitely. I'll take you up on it.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about your super special sauce, which is travel guides, and not just yours, but other people's travel guides too. I think this is a brilliant concept. But if it's okay with you, let's start with your travel guide. So I went nosing around on your beautiful site. You have the most amazing photography.
Thank you.
And I saw Greece and Portugal, right?
Yes.
So tell me, like, how did you come up with the idea that, because you've been all over the world, how did you decide that those two were going to be your guide? How did you decide you were going to do a guide?
Yeah.
Where did this idea come from?
All good, all good questions. Like you mentioned, I started in a group with other people, and they were selling guides first. So we always have been kind of encouraging other people, like, hey, why don't you bring on a destination guide? Like, what could you contribute, kind of thing. And it's just a wonderful community that's always trying to find the next thing that, that might make money. And obviously, selling itineraries is something that we've all found success with. And for me, it was more of, okay, what areas do I know really well? And what have I been to recently? Because, I've been to 20 countries in Europe, but I can't write detailed itineraries about all of them.
Right.
So that's kind of how I started. I have one more that's in the works that hopefully will turn out in the next month. But, the whole idea was I'm planning these itineraries for myself, but what if I put it out there so other people could use it? Because it takes so much time, as we all know, to plan a trip. So what if you could have all the research done for you? So these are restaurant recommendations, activities, hotels, and it's a day-by-day, both of them are day-by-day guides of how you make that trip happen. So I give options, like maybe you don't travel like we do, maybe you like a slower pace. So like, one day you might have options to, just relax and go to the park with your kids, or if you have older kids and they want to do like a hands-on activity, I make sure to include those different options for people. And it's at a pretty good price point. I think it's $19.99. So like for somebody,
it's a 10-day guide too, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just like, here's how to spend a weekend.
No. And that's like goes on probably to your next question, is like how long. I mean, these are one's 40-page, one's 50-page guides.
40 pages.
Yeah, but I mean, it tells you everything. There's a map that will show you like each day. Here's where you're going. Here's the map. I mean, and I'm not sending you all over the city. I mean, they're concentrated by day. Like here's, so it's manageable,
So your Uber costs are not $3,000 in the end.
Right, exactly. And then I share things like private guides that we used, or if we had a private transfer service, who that was with. Because again, there's so many people out there trying to find the answer themselves, and this saves you all the time of not having to do that. Like you don't have to go, search through all the Facebook groups or ask your friends or read the guidebooks. I mean, this is a condensed way of just handing you an itinerary, and then you make it what you want to make it. You book everything. I'm not, like, let's be clear, I'm not booking anything for
Right.
but it has everything that you need to book the perfect trip for you and your family. Or even if you were just going with friends or a husband, I mean, or wife, whatever, it
Right.
makes it easy for you to kind of narrow down the wealth of information that's out there.
So you mentioned that you were in a mastermind group. They were like, basically, come on, Kirsten, it's time for you to contribute a
Yeah.
guide also. So
Yeah, a little pressure there.
how long have you been blogging before you wrote your first guide? Can you give us a little backstory on that?
Sure. So I've been writing Kids Are a Trip for 9 years. And then I started my second site as multi-generational vacations during COVID and switched that over to Groups Are a Trip, which is more obviously, like it sounds, group travel. So it's not just the multi-gen family, it's traveling with your friends, traveling with couples, other couples, or multi-gen vacations. So focused on those for like the first 7 years. I think I made my first guide was last year in March for Greece. And then I just released the new one this year for Portugal in February. And the reason why it takes so long is because it takes so long. I mean,
It takes long to build it, right?
yeah, you can't just sit there and write it. I mean, for the first guide, it took me, I would literally sit down with a clock and say, I am writing for an hour today. I mean, so if you think, or if I'm doing a page a day, I mean, so 50 pages is going to take you 50
Couple months.
days.
And that's
Yeah,
not
I
even
mean,
the formatting and everything to go.
yeah. And thankfully, I don't do the design. I hired a designer, and it's Brianna's sister, actually. So,
Oh, Megan. Nice.
yep. So
Yeah,
if
she's
she,
done a lot for us. I'll put her link in the information down below. She's a
yeah.
fantastic graphics designer for
Yeah,
bloggers.
definitely. Highly recommend her. So she's done both of my first two guides and she'll do my third one as well. But just very happy with all the layout design. I learned really probably year 5 that if I couldn't do it well and it took me way too long, I need to hire somebody who can do it for me. And I can't tell you what a difference that makes. I mean, it's investing in your business long term, as you know, but I mean, I don't know who needs to hear that today, but like make the
So
move.
true, right?
Yeah.
Your time is money too,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
especially if you're not the expert, like maybe, I mean, Megan's pretty special.
Yeah.
Maybe you could make something that looks as beautiful as Megan, but is it going to
Sure.
take you 3 times longer, 4 times longer? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that's not your skill.
Right. Right. So, yeah, I'm
Now,
like, I,
do you think it was necessary for you to wait that long? I mean, did you wait that long? Is that just when you got the idea, had the place, had the resource, those other people? Do you think you would have been successful with your guides if you had done it in year 3 or 4 or 5?
it's a good question. I did it then because I probably only learned that guides were a thing maybe 3 years ago. I don't know, time
And
all
maybe
blurs.
they were only a thing 3 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so, and then the very next like big trip I took after they learned of them was to Greece. So I think that was kind of like, oh, okay, well, I don't see anybody else out there doing this kind of thing. I mean, granted, there are smaller itineraries like, hey, here's a 2-day itinerary, and then it's just a list of things. I mean, this is literally like, okay, you're going to the museum, and then you're going to walk 5 minutes down this road to the next thing that you're doing. So, I mean, it's a lot of hand-holding details that you don't get in other itineraries. And I probably just used that based off of what other people were saying was working for them and what wasn't working for them. And like I said in the beginning, I mean, it's what I know, what I've done, what I'm comfortable and familiar with. I don't want to turn out something that's, a one-off destination that like, I've never been to.
Right. So when you're working with your mastermind, like let's say Tanzania inside and out. If somebody else in the group already has a Tanzania guide, do you say, okay, well, I'm going to pick something else? I mean, do you talk amongst yourself about who's going to do what?
Yes and no. I mean, it's very encouraging. Like they keep telling me that I need to create a Puerto Rico guide because I'm Puerto Rican and I go there all the time. But I mean, for me, it's not, I hate to say this, but I don't feel like people need a guide when they go because usually it's very easy to get around because they speak English. They use the US dollars. You don't need a passport. And most people aren't going for extended 10-day or 2-week vacations. They're going
Right.
for 3 to 5 days. So I'm going to pass on that one. And one of them may pick it up, you never know, but they have put that out there like, hey, why don't you do this? I'm like, I don't really want to do that. So I do try to research, like, what are the top destinations that Americans are traveling to? I Google that quite often because I'm trying to just keep up with that and see, like, where did most people travel last year? And it helps that I'm one of the admins on a Lux Facebook group. And I just kind of go through the group and see, like, where are people asking questions, where are people traveling, and that kind of, determines what I think is going to be helpful to, readers.
Right. So let's, I have tons of questions about that, but I want to circle back before I lose it and explain more about why it's beneficial for you to be selling these guides or itineraries in a groups format. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we all sell our guides on SendOwl. They have a very easy to use affiliate program. And what it is we all have agreed that if you sell somebody else's guide, it's a 50% commission. So,
Nice.
So straight away, it's kind of building, relationships not amongst us, where we're like, okay, we are this collective community of sharing guides, and we all work together and, promote one another. And it just expands our own offering. So, like, where I may just do Greece and Portugal, somebody else in the group does Hawaii, somebody does Jordan, someone's doing Israel. There's Japan on there, Italy, Ireland. I mean, you name it, there's, and everybody has a landing page and it goes to everybody's guide. So, it just kind of exponentially, you are still making money, even if it's not your guide that somebody ends up purchasing. So,
and you all have the guides, you're all sharing this 50% affiliate commission, except of course when you sell your own.
Right. Yeah.
What about, so what do you think brings about those sales besides the community aspect and likelihood that if somebody's following you, they're probably following those other people because y'all kind of sounds like you have the same sort of travel likes?
Yeah, family travel. Yeah, similar.
Do you think it's SEO driving it? Do you think it's email marketing? Do you think it's word of mouth? What do you think? Do you put any ad dollars behind it?
All of the above except for ads. I don't put any ads out there, but it's coming through SEO, social media, pop-ups on my site. So I have it all set up. Nice. When they come to my Greece articles, it's like, you planning a trip to Greece, check out our Greece guide. I can also cross promote it on both websites. So I make sure that I have a landing page on the Groups Our Trip page as well. And a lot of it's word of mouth too. And I thought this was a good idea. I sent out a follow-up letter to everybody who bought one last year and said, hey, can I get a couple sentences about whether or not you like the guide? And I'd like to use it for my media kit. One response. And it was a great response, but I was like, really? Like, even like my friends who bought it, I was like, come on, somebody give me something. But so yeah, and then I had somebody reach out to me the other day and they're like, it's so great, saved me so much time planning. And I said, when you get back from your trip, could you please send me, something I can use to add to my media kit? So
that's so important. Those reviews make a big difference because because there are people making Greece and Portugal guides when they spent 3 days there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they don't know. So let's talk about, I'm looking down here at my notes. Oh, here's the other question I wanted to ask you. So the places you've elected to write these guides on are major tourist destinations where people spend an extended period of time. The other thing that I see a lot of people writing guides on, there seems to be a lot of competition in this area, is the national parks.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think, based on the way that you've done it, your model, how you see your sales, do you think there's any room for that for, I'll say domestic as in US, since we're both in the US, for domestic travel for Americans?
It's an interesting question. And I think that's probably why I've stayed away from creating US guides, and kind of like Puerto Rico too. I feel those are both, I call it the approachable factor. I mean, me planning a trip to Denver, for instance, I think I can do that on my own. I don't think I would need to ask anybody. That being said, like if it was Alaska, I would
Mhm.
want a guide for that,
Right.
and people want guides for Hawaii too, all the time. Like that's a big seller.
But do you think that that's because you're a travel writer? Like I always wonder, like how do I approach travel differently because I write about it because I live, eat, sleep, and breathe it. I mean, the only thing
Yeah.
I know better than travel is SEO, right? I mean, it's like
Yeah.
so. I always think, am I doing this the way everybody else does it?
Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like I spent so much of my life being a normal consumer. So I feel like I draw on that versus, I mean, yes, I've been a travel writer for 9 years, but honestly, I don't plan most of my travel. So when I do, like, I'm really putting in the hours and making sure it works right and making sure things flow. And, I think that's kind of the benefit of these guides is you get to go, a user is using something that you've already created, you've done, you're recommending. I mean, because there's restaurant recommendations in there too, like we went to this restaurant, we enjoyed the restaurant. I'm not going to send you to a place that was disgusting. Now service I can't guarantee because we all
Well,
know what service is doing right now. So
right.
but I mean, that is the thing, is that for back to your question about domestic destinations, I think that there probably are some, like the national parks, that are overwhelming because you can't all do the same thing. And when you do a Google search, it all returns the same thing. So
Right.
I think you could have benefits with doing a really well detailed guide to, like, 3-day guide to X park, and make it, geez Louise, Great Smoky Mountains. I think that, like, because it's huge, and you have
There's multiple
Gatlinburg.
entrances and
Yeah, Gatlinburg, you have Pigeon Forge, and it's like, where do people stay? What do you do? I mean, if you did a deep dive into that, I'm sure like that would be something fabulous and very useful, because people don't know, they don't know what they don't know. And I don't know that like, especially now, I don't know that most travelers are just a let's go wing it kind of traveler. I mean, there's a lot of planning now these days. There's insurance that's happening on trips that wasn't happening before. So, I mean, you have to book out so much further. Like that just drives me crazy, because I was one of
especially
those.
the parks.
Yes, I was one of those like last minute, like we can go to Europe in 3 months and I got this covered. And I was like, there's nothing available to sleep in. So we're not going to do that. So there's just, I think it's just the way travel has shifted is kind of like there are more planners out there now.
Mhm.
Not that they didn't always exist, but I feel like there's even more of us went back to it now,
Right.
so.
So, if you feel comfortable sharing this, no numbers, but um, I'm thinking about your recommendations for tours to take, and
Yeah.
you mentioned insurance. I mean, is affiliate marketing a sizable, mentionable amount of the revenue that you see from those guides?
Yeah, definitely. And I have that in there. I have like a full page at the end. It's like, here's all the tours we recommend. Like they're throughout the guide, but then they're also at the end. So it makes it really easy. Like, here's your hotels I offered you. Here's the car rental place.
You're
Here's
reiterating what you said
yeah. And
earlier.
just like, so, I mean, the click-through rate on that is much higher because it's putting it right in their face. Like, here's the one I'm talking about. Go click it now.
And do it soon before it's
And do
booked.
it too. But I actually, on my Greece guide, I have a recommendation for a driver that we used while we were there. I don't make anything off of that. He has sent me no less than 5 thank you notes going, oh
Oh,
my God, I had the best time. I was with this person. I don't know who that person is, but they have to be a
he
person
doesn't know that.
who bought my guide. But like, I'm just spreading goodwill. Like I want to share these destinations with people. I want to help the small business people who I've used that I think are very reliable, and just, what you give comes back to you tenfold. I mean, I truly believe
For
that.
sure.
I'm not giving his name out for any money. I'm just giving because he's a great driver. So, things like that are included in the guides too. And, I think that that's what makes it something that's valuable, is there things you're not going to find anywhere else.
Right. No one's going to tell you to call Jorge in
Yeah.
a moon guide or,
Yeah.
Lonely Planets travel
Yeah.
guide, right?
Yep.
So, when I think about, so I am really obsessed with products right now. And I have a different challenge on the products end because I have a hyper local. I mean, you have a global blog, and I'm trying to think about how am I going to get a product for my hyper local community. And I think the thing that stops me every single time is I stop and think, okay, just like you said, how much time is it going to take me to make this? How many do I think I can sell? How much do I think I can sell it for? And then when I think in my head how many I have to sell to break even, I'm like, oh, that's too many. So do you start with that in mind, or are you just like, I'm just doing it?
Okay, so it's funny you say that because my husband is totally like you, where he's like, "How many do you have to sell to break even? Have you broken even yet? What?" And I'm just like, "I think this is a great thing. It's gonna work." And thankfully it has worked. But to your point, yes, I've broken even on the grease guide. I'm halfway there on the Portugal guide, but
But you just released that one recently.
yeah, I mean that was February, so
Oh, well, that's fast. Halfway there,
yeah.
because this is
But
a
again,
long-term play,
yes. Oh, yeah. Popular destinations. And the fact that I go in and I edit, I'm going to, I already edited the Greece one for this year, but like making sure that every year you're going in and making sure none of your links are broken, none of the restaurants closed, that whole thing. And so it is upkeep and time and hours to devote to that. So that's the question is, do you want to put in that kind of work for the returns? So that's kind of what I go from, and I had no idea when I put the first one out there, like, is this even going to work? But thankfully it has. And again, like we talked about, I had the support of other people saying, hey, I've been selling XYZ guide and I'm seeing this kind of profit on it. I mean, one of the gals,
you're like, what was that?
yeah, I mean, she does probably several hundred, if not more, a month in sales. And I'm just like, wow, that's just extra money. Like,
Right, exactly.
like once you clear that whole like investment part, then it's just extra money. And
How many more trips can I take with that?
yeah. And like you said about like if you have a designer create it, like obviously I had to pay some money out for that. But if you're doing it yourself, that's just more money that's in your pocket. So
Right.
it's just all what model works for you. So for me,
To guess that your second one didn't take as long as your first one, even though you're doing all those details. Like now you kind of know this is
right.
what's in my guide. This is what I look for.
Yeah.
And then, but you'll still have somebody put it into, it's this, I'm guessing the same format so that it looks like your brand, but if the wording's different or whatever, she has to reformat that information.
Yes.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about kind of the benefits of this model that you've got going on. You've got fantastic destinations. We know they're typical tourist destinations, so you pick the right place. You've got the site. I mean, your site's getting traffic, and you've got an email list, so you've already got that roadway to sell. Plus, you've got essentially a sales team with your friends who are pushing your guides in other ways. So those are all like all of a sudden, I'm stoked again to think about a product for myself because I'm like, oh, I see the upsides. So
you can do it.
Let's balance it. Tell me some of the challenges that you've had with this, like from either a sales, marketing, creative perspective, any of those avenues.
Sure. Okay, from a sales perspective, I think, I probably would benefit if I put some ad money behind it. Like I have not gone down that path yet. I could do that and I probably should. So I'm going to probably write that little note and take that. But, and what else we didn't talk about was that after that first one came out, I reached out to everybody I knew and felt comfortable approaching who had a Greece article to see if they would put links in their post to my
Perfect.
So that was helpful for building links to the guides. And just, I also offered them the affiliate program, and I think only a couple of them took me up on it, but hey, it's money in their pocket if they sell one. So I'm like, hey, you probably should. So I guess if anybody else out there wants to reach out to me and sell my guides, I'm always up for that. And then the sales, the marketing, what was the other thing you
The
asked?
creative,
The creative. So the creative, I mean, thankfully, like I said, this group, they kind of did the work before me. So lovely, lovely Vanessa Hunt of Wanderlust Cruise. She gave me a copy of one of hers, and I was like,
she's pretty amazing.
She is super amazing. And Megan actually designed hers. So I was like,
Megan's
okay.
everywhere.
Megan kind of does it all. So, Megan had the format, but she customized it all for my site. But, I took what Vanessa wrote and I did some things that were similar, but then other things that were different. But she travels a lot differently. I mean, she has more kids than I do. I have teenage and now a 20-year-old boy. So it's like, we're not traveling to the zoo. We're not going to the zoos. And I guess I should make that clear. This is not like if you're traveling with infants. I mean, I've toddlers. I mean, the activities that I'm sharing are much
They're
more
essentially the same as adults, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, because
it's how I travel with my middle school kid. So it just really matters how you travel, right?
Yeah. And so I think that helped definitely with the design process, is having someone who already came before, and was willing to share that process with me. The research that goes into it, I mean, I think that's the most time consuming, is like filling in the blanks of what you don't already know. It's like, okay, what are all the transportation rules? What are the, I don't talk about car seat rules, but I guess I could have, but where do you buy your tickets for the trains? Like, and going and chasing down those links and the ferries and everything else. And I think part of what made me create this was, it was complicated to create a Greece itinerary. We did it in 2019 was 2019 first year I created it. We ended up moving that summer. 2020 was COVID. 2021 was but then 2022, okay, yeah, finally now we can go do this, whatever. I guess actually we went in 2021, but I felt like I'd recreated the trip 3 separate times. And so I had all this information. I'm like, I'm going to share it with everybody, because it was just like, I feel the same way about Japan. Like, we're now planning a Japan trip, and I'm like, I don't know where to start. So of course I bought Vanessa's guide, because she has a Japan guide. And so, I mean, it is kind of one of those things, like, I see people using this as, if you are a first timer to Europe, if you're a first timer to an unfamiliar destination, like, these are where these guides come in helpful. And like we said, national parks could be like that too, especially for like a hiking family or something who wants to know the trails and more of the like deep dive of the park than just like a drive loop through the pretty loop, so
buy your pass.
hands-on thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what advice would you have? Well, so you said you have another one coming out. You want to share with us what it is?
I guess, because it's around the corner. It's going to be Spain. And the reason I chose Spain is I actually lived in Spain in college, and I've been back there several times since with my husband, with kids. I have a really good friend that lives there. So I have a local on the ground that can kind of help me with stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's just one of those destinations that I'm seeing more and more families asking about. And so I've incorporated a lot of what we've learned on our trips of like, it will be Barcelona, Sevilla, and I think it's Marbella is what we decided to do. So, and Granada. So it was more of a start in the northeast and go down through the middle and then end in Sevilla. So skip Madrid. I lived in Madrid. I love Madrid, but I don't always recommend it for families because it's very arts and culture oriented. And like,
I went there in my 20s with my sister, and it was perfect for a 20s girl trip. But I don't think my kids would be like, yawn.
Yeah, it's hot. It's hot most of the year. And like when Americans are traveling mostly in the summer, like a lot of places in Madrid don't have air conditioning. So it's like, God forbid you take the kids there and now you don't have air conditioning. Like, we're going to stay away from that. So this is like Barcelona.
That's a book called How to Have a Breakdown.
Yeah. That's gonna be a whole nother guide. That's the next one. Yeah. These cities will cause a breakdown. Please don't book your trip there.
Well, I lived in Japan for 4 years, and I think as you were talking about Japan, I was thinking about that because like the trains are so different than American trains. The culture's different. You need to know what to do with your chopsticks and what not to do with your chopsticks. And the corn on pizza is delicious.
Wow.
You know? So yeah, I can see, especially places like Japan, like Europe is, they just roll their eyes at us Westerners, sometimes as Americans, but in Japan, it's a little bit different. So those places, maybe the guide would cost more, because it'll probably be thicker too, right?
Yeah. I think hers is a 10-page guide, and it's I think it's probably about 50. I'm sorry, not 10-page, 10-day. So it's probably about 50 pages. So
that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it's very detailed. The thing you have to do is like when you get these guys, though, make sure it's the cities you want to go to, because Vanessa's.
You have to go back, right?
A lot. Yeah, it's like almost like a 2-trip thing, because we're actually doing Tokyo and Kyoto and doing day trips from both of them. But hers, I think, covers Osaka and Hiroshima and, a bunch of other different places that, we're not going to go. But what I got it for is all the information in the beginning about like the Japan Rail Pass and, and like you're saying, the cultural things and carrying your own trash bags with you, like things that I would never think about. So it's kind of like an insider guide in your pocket where you can get it in a guidebook, I feel like, but they're heavy to carry around. This you can use on your phone. These are all connected to Google Maps, so you can just pull up the Google map for the day and plan your day around that. So, yeah, I think it, just kind of hits a spot in the market where there are people who don't want to go with a travel advisor and are but like to plan on their own. So it's kind of the happy medium between the two of them. So hopefully that's what it is, solving a problem.
I love it. Now I'm motivated more than ever. Thank you for sharing all of this. What can we break here with maybe some, if we've inspired people to do it, like at least you've inspired me. Like I really got to do it now.
Good.
But what any additional advice, tips, starting points, things to consider that you would share with other bloggers who might want to do the same thing?
Yeah, first and foremost, lay it out. Like start yourself with an outline. I mean, that's how I start all of them. It's like, okay, these are the different topics I want to cover. These are the destinations I want to cover. These are maybe the hotels I know or the restaurants. I mean, then it becomes a little bit more easier to fill in the blanks when you do pull it all together. But then, when you're obviously put it all on your computer, but then like you need to set goals. I mean, that end of the day, you have to give yourself goals or this project could go on forever, because as we know, especially with Leslie's lovely class and projects she sends me out to do, like in the middle of editing all these posts, I'm just like, I need to put aside time to tackle this. So, if it's something you really want to do, you make sure that you allow yourself time each day to, I mean, even if it's just 15 minutes, tackle it.
Love that.
Touch it, look at it, feel what it's missing. And then when you're finished with it, go back and reread it and make sure it's clear, because last thing you want to do is tell a guy that people are like, I have no idea what she means. So it's like, and also I give myself a little grace, like paragraph in the guide's like, we are high, we travel fast. Like we're not like slow and go, slow burn. We are up, get the stuff done, go on the tours, eat dinner, go to bed, and if that's not your style, that's fine. But you can always change it around and make it work for you. Don't feel like you need to follow what I'm doing, So
I love that.
I think it's important for everybody. If you are going to sell an itinerary, have that little blurb that says like, these are purely suggestions, it's kind of like that legal disclaimer.
Right.
I'm not a doctor, but I play with opinion. Yeah, like that.
Love that. So what you're saying is do it consistently and with a plan, because I've heard that somewhere before.
Oh, you might have heard that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kirsten, for being here and sharing all this with us. I am truly inspired, and I know other people are going to be too.
Good. Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
Great. Thank you.